lawlessness. There is no substitute for obedience. No substitute. Not spiritual talk. Paul says, no one can say that Jesus is Lord but by the Holy Spirit. But not even this profession will guarantee you a passport to heaven. Merely saying the words, Jesus is Lord, will not save you unless you submit to his lordship. It is not the hearers of the word, nor the talkers of the word, but the doers of the word that will be blessed. People are not judged by their talk, but by their walk. Many can talk their religion by the mile and walk it by the inch. They have a religious vocabulary instead of a religious commitment. They think they are doing their duty when they are only talking about it. You see, there's no substitute for obedience. Not spiritual talk and not spiritual gifts. Remember that Judas possessed gifts of teaching and preaching and exorcism, along with the other 11 disciples. He had spiritual gifts, but his heart was with the demons that he cast out. Gifted disobedience. Gifted disobedience is the greatest tragedy for a nation, a church, or an individual. Jesus said, to whom much is given, of him shall much be required. Many atheists and agnostics live better creeds than they profess. You hear me? They live better creeds than they profess. They live as though life had enduring value beyond mere chemistry and physics. They live as though a moral code beyond mere survival of the fittest was in place. They live a creed better than they profess. And it is better to live a creed you don't profess than it is to profess a creed you don't live. I hope, however, that you do both. You live it and you profess it. On Judgment Day, Christ says 3 things to disobedient false prophets. The first thing he says is their verdict. I never knew you. Jesus does not suddenly disown somebody who made a last-minute slip, but rather he declares that there was never a relationship between him and this phony. The first thing that Jesus declares is their verdict, and second, their sentence. Depart from me. Now, Jesus is not driving off a sincere seeker, but rather giving up on one whose heart has always been far from him. He said of them, these people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. He declares his verdict, their sentence, and finally, their character. You who practice lawlessness. Their lawlessness was compounded because they were exposed to the best of God's kingdom, and they rejected it. I never knew you. Depart from me. you who practice lawlessness. And so they are banished from the presence of him who is present everywhere. They are erased from the memory of him who knows everything. There are 3 tests that identify false prophets: the truth test, the fruit test, and the obedience test. Be on guard against the falseness both within us and around us. My faith has found a resting place. Has your faith found that resting place? If it has, stand with me now as we sing our commitment.